Hello and welcome back to another episode. It's been over 2 years ago that I made a 5-part video series about some of my electronic handheld and tabletop games, and after I've uploaded those series I've got some requests from my viewers to make another video about those games, and I actually also wanted to make another video about them as well, but the problem that I always have is that there's so many in the end there's so much stuff that I want to review, and it's always a tough decision for me to decide which is going to be my next project. But now I finally have come to to make another video about some more of my electronic handheld and tabletop games. And before we start, there's one small thing left that I have to mention, that is that I'm not going to talk about the history of those games in this video, because I've already told the interesting but also very long history about electronic handheld and tabletop games in part 1 of my previous video. So if you are interested in if you haven't seen it yet, then if you want you can check it out. I'm gonna put the link of part 1 in the description box. But now I think it's time to start this video, so let's go. For the beginning I thought we're gonna start with some Game & Watch games, and we're gonna start with this one, Zelda, from the Multiscreen series. This was released in 1989 and it needs two button cell batteries like this one, the LR44 or SR44. But before I'm gonna insert the batteries, let's take a closer look at the handheld. Now, typical for the Multiscreen series, you have two displays and yeah, the Nintendo DS was based on the idea of the Nintendo Game & Watch games from the Multiscreen series. Now here we have D-pad, left, right, up, and with down you activate Water of Life. With this item, if you collect it, you can replenish your health, or basically you get more hearts for Link. Here we have the attack button. You can we have here a game button, continue and time, and you can also set an alarm. And basically you only have one game mode, and if you complete the game and then you can restart the game in the second game mode, and then it's a little bit harder and you get more points, and yeah, you can continue your high score basically. But in the end, if you lose the game, you can continue. I actually don't know, I guess 2 continues or 3 continues you have. And yeah, basically what you have to do in this game is basically save Princess Zelda, and you accomplish this by defeating 8 dragons. On the top here is the boss area. Here you're gonna fight the dragon. Then here in the middle you have you have basically 3 items that you can collect in the game. You have a tomahawk, a map, and the Water of Life. And with tomahawk you need this weapon to actually so you can fight actually the dragon. With the map, which is down here, you can where the dragon is and in which direction you have to progress in order to get to the dragon. Then up here, of course, are all the Triforces. In the end you need 8 Triforces to rescue Zelda, and yeah, basically you have to fight through a couple of layers / dungeons, and this is the area where you're gonna fight the monsters in each layer or dungeon. And after you've defeated the one enemy here on the right side, down here you can see his life energy, or its life energy, and if you defeat this guy on the right side, then you will get most likely one of the items, or if not, then you can progress in one of the directions depending on where you are on the map. But let's insert some batteries and more action, less talk. Okay. The skeleton on the bottom tries to stab you from below, so you always have to make sure that he doesn't hit you. And now I defeated him and I got a heart. Okay, now I can choose which path I want to take, because we're here down on the bottom. Let's go on the right side. And now we have 2 enemies. And it's a little bit harder now. I am playing badly. Hopefully I make it at least to the first dragon. And I got the tomahawk. Okay, I can only go left. Oh, and now we have the ghost, and when you push the attack button, then the shield will go the other way and you can defend yourself against the arrow from behind. A little too hectic. Now we got the map and we know the dragon is here on the left side. Okay, let's continue to the left. And we got the Water of Life, which I'm gonna use right now. And now we come to the boss fight. And here you have to make sure that you don't get hit by the fireballs and also by the tail of the dragon. And you can only attack him if you are on the right side of this platform. And again, normally you see down here on the bottom the life energy, but we couldn't see that right now. Okay, and now I've collected one of the Triforces. And yeah, and so on. This is actually a pretty cool one. Oh, I'm full of heart now. I can show you that you can also shoot the enemy, and now it's a lot easier because I don't have to go into melee battle with him. And now I lost one of my hearts. Okay, but this was Zelda, actually a very cool handheld from the Nintendo Game & Watch series, multi-screen, really cool handheld, makes a lot of fun, and I find it fascinating that they came up with this idea for a handheld with, yeah, basically with great gameplay and with different levels and everything. So this is a very cool handheld from the Nintendo Game & Watch multi-screen series that I would highly recommend to any video game collectors / handheld collectors. But now we come to the next handheld, which is also from the Game & Watch series and also from the multi-screen series, Gold Cliff. This was released in 1988 and of course uses the same button cell batteries, LR44 and SR44. And if you are more or less a long time viewer of my channel / if you watched the right videos, then you know that this was the handheld that started my whole collection, because I had it back then and I found it in a second video game store, and after I've bought it I've got hooked on on nostalgic feelings and on old video game stuff, and from there on I started collecting video games. Okay, what have we here? Now here down on the left side here we have of course also again the D-pad, and here we have a jump button. And what we have to manage in this game is we have to work ourselves from the bottom to the top. At first we have to find or to get a key that is on the right side here, and up here we have a lock, and we have to open this lock with the key, and then we continue to the next room, let's call it like that, then again. And if I'm not mistaken, in the third room there is up here a priest, or basically this guy here, priest or witch doctor or whatever, and we have to first get the sword, which is on the left side, and then we have to stab him, and then we get the treasure. Actually, I don't know who you are playing. Is this an explorer, a graveyard thief or whatever, or are you some kind of an archaeologist, or I don't know. But in the end it's pretty nice. And down here on the bottom sometimes those crabs will come, and of course you have to avoid getting touched by those crabs. And yeah, but again, less talk, more action. So we're gonna start playing the game. And here on the right side, same things like with the Zelda handheld, game continue, time, and you can also set an alarm for the clock. But let's start with the game. And you have a normal jump, or if you press a little bit longer, then you have a double jump. Okay, I hope I can do this here. Now the key is on the top, and we have to make it to the top, get, or better say reach the key and open the lock with it. And this was the first room. And down here the crabs already showed up. Okay, second room. Basically the same stuff to do. I guess it's one more room. Yeah, one more room. Okay, now we come to the final room with this priest or witch doctor, whatever this guy is. And we have to collect first the swords. And here we go. Yeah, I collected the treasure. And yeah, now it continues, it gets faster, harder, and so on. It's also a really cool one, and I've played this one a lot back in the days. Not as cool as the Zelda one, I give you that, but in the end I think it's also a pretty cool handheld from the Nintendo Game & Watch multi-screen series. In terms of the gameplay, it's okay, it's not as cool as the Zelda one, but it's still a lot of fun. And for collectors, yeah, you can't go wrong with a Nintendo Game & Watch, at least in my opinion. But let's continue with the next Game & Watch game. And the next one is this here, Bomb Sweeper, again one of the multi-screen series. This one was released in 1987, uses also the same batteries, and here you only have a D-pad. You have here on the right side game A, game B and time, and what this game basically is kind of a puzzle game, because down here you have to disarm bombs, and the only thing that you have to do is you have to reach one of the bombs. In many levels there's only one bomb, but in some levels there are actually two bombs, and you can move walls, but only if only if you have free spaces. You're gonna see later on what I mean by that, and it's pretty cool, especially for a puzzle game. And the funny thing is, actually this is one, or maybe this is my favorite handheld game that I have so far, and I really like it. There are a lot of puzzles, and I don't know how many puzzles you actually have to solve, I guess 8 or so, or 7, and then you come basically to a final level which moves the whole screen. And yeah, you have to make it to the bomb and disarm it. And yeah, it's a really cool game, but now I'm gonna show it to you. It's better than explaining. So again, the LR44 or SR44 if you have those. And let's start the game. We're gonna start with start with game A. This is the bad guy who places the bombs. And we go after him and disarm all the bombs. And at first the levels are very easy, so it's not that hard to get to the bombs. But later on, and this is the thing that I told you about, you can move walls, but only in the right spaces. And of course there's a timer, and if the time runs out, the bomb blows up. No, this was for wrong. Ah, shit. Okay, this was totally wrong. Okay. And now you see I've did a boo-boo. But let's try it again. Okay, now I've got it. Let's see if I can make it to the last level, or to the boss level, let's call it like that. Oh, and here we have the last level. Okay, let's say the last level of the first section. And I made it. And a lot of points. Okay, now this was Bomb Sweeper. Yeah, like I said before, for me it is a really, really cool handheld. I love it. Maybe it's my favorite. It's pretty close to the Zelda one, but yeah, I actually like this one a tiny, or better say a little bit more than the Zelda handheld. Again, I think it's a very cool Nintendo Game & Watch game from the multi-screen series that I would highly recommend in terms of gameplay and of course in terms of collecting. Very cool one that I would highly recommend. The next one is Space Centurion Gundam. This is also an LCD electronic handheld game from the company Bandai, and it was released in 1983, and it also uses those LR44 batteries. Now what's very interesting and actually cool about this handheld is because it's a triple vision handheld, and what this means is you basically have 3 different stages / patterns, and you have this flip screen. So the first level you have the first pattern, then the game will signal you that you have to flip the screen, which you do by pushing this open button. Then you have here the second pattern / the second level, and down here you have the third pattern, and then you have to switch back, and so on and so on. Now here on the left side you have your sound options, sound on, sound off. Here you can select if you want to change the time or whatever, and if you want to select the game and everything. Then down here you can basically cancel, or I guess clear, the time settings and do them again. Here you have the start and attack button, and here you have a little joystick, left, right, up, down. Now the funny thing is, for the most part you only need left and right, and up and down is only for the first level / the first pattern, because you have in this level a foreground and background layer or level, and in the foreground you fight against some spaceships, and in the background you have your little space station down here, and you have to defend it from I guess those are robots or mechs, whatever, and you have to switch between the screens, because if you fight in the foreground area, the background area is not protected or anything, and if one of those robots or mechs comes, then you have to fight him off, or otherwise he destroys your space station and then you lose a life. Okay, but yeah, let's start the game, and let me show you. So let's start with level 1. Okay, there's the mech, and I have to switch. And we made the first level, and this is the signal that shows you that you have to switch the screen. Now we're here on the third screen. Yeah, and basically this was a complete playthrough, more or less, of all 3 stages, and now I have to play back to stage 2 and then back to stage 1. So this was Space Centurion Gundam. Yeah, I think the audio is actually not that great on this handheld game, and also in terms of gameplay, it's not really that great. It's a little bit boring actually. When it comes to collecting, I think it's a very cool one, a very interesting one, because of those 3 screens that you basically, or actually they are 2 screens, but in the end you have 3 different stages. So I'll give it that, but again, in terms of gameplay, it's not really that great. But anyways, we come to the next. The next game that I wanted to show you is this one right here. Pac-Man from the company Coleco. This is a mini arcade tabletop game from the year 1981, and it's a VFD game. Now, just from the looks, I think it's an awesome looking tabletop game, because it really looks like an arcade cabinet, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. Mine right here is in a good condition, but not in a great condition. Mainly, I mean, the previous owner tried to, I don't know, either he spilled some super glue on this or he tried to fix something else. I don't know, this is one of those things that I really hate, that the super glue is on there, but anyways. Okay, now what's also cool about this tabletop game is that, number 1, you have 2 difficulty levels. You have skill 1 and skill 2, and you can play this game with a second player, which is also pretty cool. And you have a couple of different game modes. If you turn on the system, you can decide between the normal Pac-Man mode, then you have a demo mode, head-to-head, so you can play 2-player, and Eat and Run. And Eat and Run is basically the same, almost the same game like Pac-Man. You only have to collect the power pills, but not the other ones. And if you, or better, let's say, if Pac-Man eats one of those power pills, then he can't eat the other ghosts or anything. So it's just, you have to collect those dots or power pills, and I guess you have to make it back into the middle of the game, or the layer or maze or whatever. Yeah, and also typical for Coleco tabletop games is that here on the battery cover, normally you have the instructions on them. Today, depending on the condition of those tabletop games, a lot of times this is sadly missing. And the game uses 4C batteries. But now I guess it's time I'm gonna show you Pac-Man from Coleco in action. So we're gonna start with skill 1 and we play the normal Pac-Man. And there I made the first stage. And now it continues, of course, and it gets harder and everything, but I'm gonna turn it off right now. In terms of gameplay, I would say it's a very, very cool tabletop game. It is pretty close to the arcades, especially for an electronic tabletop game of that time. It is amazing in terms of gameplay, I have to say. I don't like the audio. This is really one drawback of this tabletop game. It's loud and I don't like the noises. So in terms of audio, I think it's not that great. In terms of gameplay, it's very cool. It would have been amazing to have this back in the days, as a child. And also in terms of collecting, I think it's an awesome electronic tabletop game from the company Coleco. Again, the audio is not that great, but except for that, it's a very awesome tabletop game. But now let's continue with the next one. The next game that I wanted to show you is this one, Miss Pac-Man, also from Coleco, a mini arcade tabletop game from the year 1983, and it's also a VFD game. Again, from the looks, I think it's an awesome looking tabletop game, like almost every one from Coleco. And also this one is in a fine condition, let's call it like that. I mean, there are some rips on the top decal, and this is also sadly one thing that if you're interested in one of those Coleco tabletop arcade games, a lot of times some of those decals are missing, or like with my version right here, some of them are sun faded, like this one. Also the plastic is a little sun faded, so they don't look that pretty anymore. And also one other thing, if you see those bands here on the top left and right, I did this basically not really an accident, because when I got all those tabletop games from Coleco, I tried to disassemble them, and sometimes I actually had to fix something inside, most of the time some contacts of the joysticks, and you have to you have to lift those up in order to get two screws which are underneath those corners. And basically this is what happens. It's or I don't know if all of them have the same glue or use the same glue of those overlays, but it's a very strong glue, and if you try to loosen up the glue, like for instance with a hairdryer or anything, it's still very tough to remove those decals to get to those screws without destroying them. So in the end, sadly I had to damage this decal, but I had to do it in order to open up the tabletop. But let's come back to the review, okay? Coleco actually did some improvements on this one compared to Pac-Man. Number one, they changed the joysticks. It's again a two-player game, but this time player one is on the right side. And this is actually good, because when you play Pac-Man, the other one, player one is on the left side, which is normal for a real arcade game, but this is a small tabletop game and it feels kind of weird to play with the left joystick. So if player one is on the right side, it feels more natural. That's the reason why I would call it an improvement, and I guess this is also the reason why this decided to move player one now on the right side. Also with this one you have two difficulty levels, skill 1 and skill 2, and when you turn on the system you can decide between Miss Pac-Man, demo mode, and head-to-head / two-player modes. The eat and run was removed from this version, but that's not that big of a deal. And one other thing which is really cool is that this time they included also the bonus points feature. So sometimes on the top there will come up one of those fruits that you have to collect, and then one of those power pellets will start to blink, which is the one that you have to catch in order to get those extra points. So this is also pretty cool. And here on the back, of course, again, also here are the instructions on the battery cover, or should be. And this game needs 4 C batteries. Okay, but again, let me show you now some gameplay of Miss Pac-Man mini arcade game from the company Coleco. Ooh! Okay, it was too late. Ah! Ah! Ha! Got all four. Okay, now the last couple of dots. And there, I made it. Yeah, and again, it also continues now. Okay, let's turn also this one off. Can I show the demo without any sound? Is it possible? No, it's not possible. Okay, Miss Pac-Man tabletop game. In terms of gameplay, I think it's an awesome tabletop game. I also like the fact that they included now that you can collect fruits for extra points, those blinking dots. This is pretty cool. I also like the fact that they improved the sound in this tabletop game. It's not that loud anymore, and it also sounds a lot nicer and clearer than in the Pac-Man game. In terms of gameplay, like I said before, awesome, and in terms of collecting, it's also an awesome piece for any collection. So Miss Pac-Man from Coleco is another tabletop game that I would highly recommend to collectors, and of course also to video gamers who like to play those electronic tabletop games.